Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts. Click and Echo is a new card. It is cute. I love the artwork on it, but holy crap, guys, this card is insane. We're going to get more in depth into it. This card is a part of the final reveals, kind of like the filler section of Duelist Nexus. So this is the next core set after Cyberstorm Access. We're more or less 3 months away from this card actually coming out, so don't fret too much right now. But it is a card I do look at, and I just get really, I don't know if anxious is the word, but like, man, I just know this card is going to be part of some degenerate strategies that people are putting together just going forward. So let's start by reading this card, going over it real quick so we all are on the same basis as what this card really does, and then we'll talk more in depth about how accessible this card is, the most important interactions I think this card is going to be a part of, and so on and so forth. So this is Click and Echo. This is a Water Sea Serpent, level 2, 300 attack, 2100 defense too. Big old booty on this guy. And this is how its effects read. Cannot be used as material for fusion, synchro, or exceed summon. Cannot be tributed while face up in the monster zone. And nextly, well, those are all like just the starting stipulations for this card. If this card is sent to the graveyard as link material, not you can, it is mandatory, special summon it to the summoning player's opponent's field in defense position. You can use this effect of Click and Echo up to twice per turn. That's pretty interesting, twice per turn, because it's mandatory. So like it would summon, you could summon it on your turn, link it off, and go to your opponent, and then they could technically IP Masquerena it away. Something like that could be funny, but I doubt it'd come up all that often. If summoned this way, or I'm sorry, in defense position, you can only use that effect twice per turn. If summoned this way, while it is in the monster zone, you must keep your hand revealed. So your hand would be whoever the player that currently owns it would have to play with their entire hand revealed. That's very interesting. So what do I see with this card? I think the first and foremost thing for this card to keep in mind, it is 100% generic. Even for, I mean, we're going to talk about more specific decks that can take advantage of this card a little bit more specifically, but I even think just for a deck that maybe doesn't use a normal summon generally. Think about something like Kashtira. You could normal summon this card, link it off for Almirage before even doing anything else, get full knowledge on your opponent's hand. That could be game one. Now you know exactly what they're playing and what to do from there. So you'd have full hand knowledge, and then you could play from there. I know Kashtira doesn't want even the Almirage on their field, but that's just an example of a deck that doesn't generally need its normal summon. Not the best example, but like we see more and more nowadays in Yu-Gi-Oh decks that just don't need their normal summon as much. I even think about stuff like Mech Knights, right? This would get a card in the EMZ. Now you'd only need a spell or trap to set. Actually, this would fully set up a column for, and give your opponent a monster so that blue could search turn one going first. That's actually crazy. But anyway, so yeah, this card can already generically be abused in any strategy really that doesn't need its normal summon too heavily, and full hand knowledge is pretty broken. This card to me has a little bit of the an aspect of New Age Ibli. Ibli's insane. Now there are some key differences there in that, you know, Ibli is like a legit floodgate for your opponent, whereas this card doesn't necessarily hinder your opponent. It just makes it much easier for you to kind of not have to guess as much on what they're playing and worry about a bunch of different possibilities. You literally know the cards they have. If they have any dead cards in hand, you know about it. There's no bluffing on that. You know, that's definitely a factor in Yu-Gi-Oh! Of, you know, my opponent has 4 cards in hand, so do I really want to fire my most powerful interruption here because they have 4 more cards? Well, if 2 of those cards are just dead, they just can't even activate it, like they're not doing anything, then like, but you would know that, right? And so you have to play kind of, you know, thinking about worst case scenario in mind, but once you know, then like you can kind of allocate interruptions accordingly, and that's very important. The other thing, it's much better going first card than going second. That's very clear. If your opponent goes first, they will have dumped most of their hand out anyway. But same thing for Ibli, so I think they kind of share the same thing there. Now, as far as accessibility for specific strategies, Deep Sea Diva summons any level 3 or lower Sea Serpent from the deck. So this is not only a 1-card link to, but it could be a 1-card, the Sprite link to, that just then sends Angler, and then you pop off from there. So this is a 1-card play that also gives your opponent your Click and Echo, which then turns off stuff like Infinite Impermanence, which also turns off, Lightning Storms evenly matches, post side, stuff like that, as well as is going to give you full hand knowledge. Like I said, all the benefits to just knowing what your opponent's playing, being able to allocate your board accordingly, especially for a deck that may have flexible possibilities to its end board, is super, super important. And the fact that you could just play one of this card and it essentially just becomes the Neospatian Aqua Dolphin of this package is like really, really insane, because it's just still going to be pretty damn accessible. Deep Sea Diva, really two main decks I think come to mind. Obviously Sprite. We already see the Nimble package run around. I think there's a world where you could play both if you wanted to. But if you want to just replace the Nimble package somewhat for the Diva package, you could absolutely do that. And then just reap the benefits of that going first, for sure. On top of that, there is like Atlantean Dragoons, whatever you want to call this build. At this point, it's like Atlantean Dragoon, Atlantean Mermail decks, but it's kind of just like water good stuff. I've seen Frog engines be in there. I've seen Deep Sea engines in there. Now we're probably going to see that new Ice Jade monster end up in there. There's going to be a lot going on, and obviously anytime they just release good water cards, that can end up being support for this stuff, so keep that in mind. Moving on, it's also important to note that Gigantic Sprite can just summon this card out of the deck if you want. Again, like, if you're playing a deck that is really worried about Lightning Storm evenly matched, go ahead and just give them the Click and Echo by summoning it off of Sprite, making the Link 2. The Link 2 then sends Nimble Angler. You pop off with a bunch of extra bodies on field, and, while also giving them that, turning off, obviously, those important cards. If you play against Kashtira, side this in, give them the Echo. Now you're turning off a lot of their starting plays. It's huge. It really does matter. It's a really big factor. Moving on. More of that water stuff. If you don't know, Atlantean Dragoons also searches any Sea Serpent monster when he's pitched to graveyard via a water monster's effect. So you could just pitch him, search Diva, boom, Diva into Echo, boom, pop off from there. So again, even more accessible in those water builds. And lastly, Deep Sea Aria is another card. You don't have to already put a water monster in your graveyard to banish off of this, but it is a card that adds any level 4 lore Sea Serpent. So if you can kind of start playing without your normal summon, then fire this to get the Diva later on, you can still set it up. And this deck also appears to have like multiple pivot points to be able to try and end on different things, which is really interesting. And so once you see their hand, you can kind of figure out what's going to be the most potent thing to kind of end on. If they don't have a blowout card, then you don't need to worry as much about negates. You can focus on other types of interruptions if you want, whatever you think is strongest. It's really, really strong. Seriously. I'm seriously terrified of this card. Now, I do think there's a strong possibility that if you're not able to play Deep Sea Diva, then like, do you really want this card in your main deck if it's pretty trash going second? Right? Probably not. But even as just like a going first card, it seems really broken. I mean, I've looked at strategies that like, and I'm mainly a rogue player, but like really struggle going first post side, getting blown out by those big blowout cards. Whereas like you're going first, you should feel more confident, but you just don't. This is something where like certain strategies could just kind of get things going, or just maybe decks that just kind of want to generically get links on the board anyway, boom, so, have a side package for going first of triple Diva, 1 Echo. It's a deck that normally loses to evenly Lightning Storm, but now you don't. And you get the extra hand knowledge, which just helps you even further. I mean, you can literally go Diva, summon Echo, make IP, give them Click and Echo, and then do the rest of whatever your extenders in deck does. I don't know. There's really a lot going on here. I'm really scared about this card. It's really, really strong, I think. We'll see. I mean, there's a world where Sprite just gets hit it hard enough on this upcoming ban list, or the ban list that'll probably come out nearer to this set's actual release, and so it may not be as big of a deal for Sprite. And then there's there's a good chance that like the water stuff just isn't good enough right now, but could change on a dime as soon as we get any wave of support for any of those good water archetypes. And then we're in trouble, right? So I'm definitely going to keep an eye on this card. I'm very, very scared of it. To me, this is new aged Ibly. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comment section down below. If you agree with me, let me know in the comment section down below. If you have any ideas of other ways this card could be utilized that I didn't mention here, let me know down below. I'd love to hear your overall thoughts on this card. I am terrified. So let me know. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching as always. If you want to see more discussion videos like this one down later on, definitely subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.